Actually, I have a question for all of you. You know, you've told us that you were treated very badly, it sounds, by your doctors. Were these doctors who didn't have any experience with intersex? Or is this the way that specialists treat intersex children?
I believe in my situation I was probably one of the first operations performed in New Zealand, but I know that nothing has changed, that exactly the same procedure is being deployed right now.
How about you, Angela?
I can attest to how the doctors that I were taken to in Peoria, Illinois in 1985 was first my pediatrician, who referred us to a pediatric endocrinologist at the University of Illinois Medical Center in Peoria, who I now know studied under a doctor, another pediatric endocrinologist at Northwestern, who had himself studied under the illustrious John Money. So there's you can see the genealogy where, there's John Money, and he taught the next generation, and he taught the next generation, my doctors, who were women. And so this Hopkins is where this all comes from, this whole practice, and so it's like straight from the top. This is not unusual that I had my clitoris taken away from me without my knowledge.
Well, they say that they just make it smaller.
That's what they say. I didn't have any measurements at the time. I didn't present any physical ambiguity until I was 12 years old. I was assigned and raised a girl, and when I was 12, my clitoris started to grow. And I knew that other girls probably weren't experiencing exactly the same changes in their bodies, but I experienced it as normal anyway. And like I said yesterday, which is very difficult for me to say, I not only noticed its size growing more prominent, but I loved it. I had this wonderful relationship with it. I think of that time that I had maybe 6 months before surgery, from the time that I noticed it and started to love it to the time that it was taken from me, is like this time in the pleasure garden before the fall, That was 1985. It's only 11 years ago. Yeah.
I wanted to have...
This is the specialist.
Hi. My name's Hida, and all the stories that people are telling show how there has been a very deliberate effort, very deliberately institutionalized effort to alter occurrences in people's anatomy and how they're born. And I was fortunate enough to somehow escape surgery. And I just want to say, hearing Angela's story, it's my body has been one of the things that I've had the most positive feelings about my entire life. Just throughout my childhood and as my body developed, I always felt extremely comfortable in my body, liked the changes in my body, loved my clitoris and the other aspects, never minded not having large breasts or any of that. And the only problems, the problems that I have experienced have been around this need, living in a society that has a need to polarize gender into male or female, and the constant subtle and at sometimes not so subtle pressures to conform to that polarized notion of gender, which has been ideologically naturalized. And the word normal comes up a lot, and I like to not use that word because finding this group is just affirming what I was coming to know just from information. The Five Sexes article was one of the first things that I read, which finally spoke to my reality. What I experienced as gender was not a polar male or female. I really didn't feel that my body fell into the categories that I read were male or female, and that were assigned normal status. And although I felt very happy with my body, I've always also, just for the medical establishment out there, had excellent health. Doctors have frequently commented on how good my health is. Very, very rarely get sick or anything, but it's an aside. But I don't know, that's what I want to say to anyone listening who has escaped surgery and to those who still argue for surgery, that the problem is not with the child. The problem is with the attitudes toward the child. And even before as I said, it was a gynecologist who first mentioned that I wasn't normal, that she should perform tests on me because of my clitoris size and that something was going on that was not normal. And she had a very discriminatory attitude toward me, which is very easy for me to perceive. She wasn't friendly. She wasn't acting like a provider who was interested in my best interests and my care, emotional, psychological care. She wanted to fix what she considered a technical abnormality. And so I strayed away from that. But as I've been telling people, every other reference to my body, from my first exposure to the word hermaphrodite, to people's comments, people noticing differences, has been very positive for me. Unlike what, psychologists or psychiatrists think will happen. It's my reality, and I love my body and myself. And what people need is to have that reality accepted and not, medically, surgically removed or ideologically removed. So that's what I want to say.
I just like to say that all the people that I've talked to as an adult, of course I didn't have the option of talking to people as a child since I didn't have anything to talk about that I knew, have been very supportive and very accepting, and I have not met yet a single person who has shamed me or hurt me, which is kind of a remarkable thing, because of course that's what we always imagine will happen if you tell anybody, that you'll be so unacceptable. So that it's very encouraging. If you speak the truth to people, usually they respond. I mean, certain people, the right people.
The people that treat this insist that it would be unthinkable to leave somebody untreated with the intersex condition. But here we all are talking about it and embracing it and even appearing on video. I think it's really amazing.
It is amazing.
And I was going to say, and another thing that people need to realize is that in this mad rush to correct this freak of nature, doctors are currently performing genocide. They are eliminating a race of people who are born different than others. And I mean, people get up in arms when they talk about the genocide of Hitler and the insane bullshit that Napoleon did. And I mean, all of, Idi Amin and just listing all of these mean, evil dictators who were really corrupt. We need to take a look at what's happening in our own backyards, at the people that are being silenced and eliminated, not so much by being put to death, but by having something removed from their bodies that sets them apart as being different. And it's just, like I said, at times I just get so frustrated and so angry. It's like I want to go out and kill something, but that's not going to fix the problem. And so I need to redirect that anger and that energy into a more constructive form of activism. And the stuff that we've been planning this weekend is like, I can't wait.
I guess I'd like to address what you're talking about being in the midst of a genocide, and I agree that we're not being killed off physically, but there is something vital that's being taken from us, and I know from the experience of my very own body that I know the really wonderful sensitivity that I had before surgery. I'm talking, in terms of genital sensation, and the tremendous orgasms that I had before, and how that experience, as I remember it, is even different from how other women have explained to me their experience of their bodies. And I use that phrase, other women, in a really kind of precarious way. And so it's very painful for me to think of how, to conceptualize that what's been taken is a very specific eroticism, like a hermaphroditic eroticism that must really scare people and really cause a great deal of anxiety. And it's just a really special part of whatever culture that we have developed individually and are bringing together. That special part, our sexuality, that sacred sexuality, has been ripped from us. And I don't want to say, I'm wary of saying that I don't have the kind of genital sensation that I did, because that doesn't mean that I don't have great sex. It does in fact mean that I have a not as reliable sexual response, and but most importantly, it means that very special form of sexuality and arousal and all of that was uniquely hermaphroditic was taken. And that's the crime.
Newspapers ask intimate questions, want confessions. They reach into my head to steal the glory of my story. They say I must be one.